It was 2:47 a.m. when Emily Harper's car broke down on Hollow Road, the narrow stretch of asphalt skirting Blackwater Woods. The clock on her dashboard blinked in protest, flickering intermittently before going dark altogether. With no cell signal and a dead battery, she cursed under her breath and stepped out into the cold October air. The wind carried an eerie stillness, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. Emily had been driving back from her sister's Halloween party in Raven Hollow, taking the longer but scenic route to clear her head. The old stories about Blackwater Woods were the last thing on her mind. Tales of people vanishing, of ghostly whispers carried on the wind. Now, stranded and alone, those stories felt much closer. Gripping her flashlight, she scanned her surroundings. The woods seemed alive with shadows, their gnarled branches twisting like skeletal fingers. A faint trail veered off the road, partially hidden by undergrowth. It wasn't there the last time she drove this way, was it? 3:12 a.m. The trail. With little choice but to seek help, Emily decided to follow the trail, hoping it led to a house or at least a clearer signal. The crunch of leaves beneath her boots was the only sound as she ventured deeper into the forest. Her flashlight beam wavered, illuminating patches of moss-covered ground and ancient trees. The air grew colder with each step, and the oppressive silence pressed against her like a weight. 15 minutes into her trek, she saw it, a faint light flickering in the distance. Relief washed over her as she quickened her pace, branches clawing at her jacket. The light belonged to a small cabin, its windows glowing with a warm amber hue. But as she drew closer, unease settled in her chest. The cabin looked old, impossibly old. Its wooden frame was warped and blackened, as though it had weathered centuries of storms. Yet the light inside burned steady. Emily knocked on the door, her knuckles trembling against the rough wood. No answer. She knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. "Hello? My car broke down. I need help," she called out, her voice barely above a whisper. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, the cabin was sparsely furnished. A single chair sat by a stone fireplace, where the light emanated from a lantern, not flames. On the far wall hung a large, cracked mirror, its surface cloudy and distorted. The air smelled of damp earth and something metallic. 3:38 a.m., the signal. Emily stepped inside, the door creaking shut behind her. She noticed an old radio on a table near the fireplace, its dials rusted and covered in dust. The lantern's light dimmed as the radio crackled to life on its own. Static filled the room, growing louder and louder until it stopped abruptly. Then came a voice. "Do not look into the mirror." Emily's blood ran cold. She spun around, half expecting to see someone standing there. The room was empty. Her gaze flickered to the mirror on the wall. The distorted surface seemed to ripple, as though something moved just beneath it. Against her better judgment, she took a step closer. The reflection was wrong. It showed the room, but the lantern's light was gone, replaced by an unnatural darkness. And then she saw herself, or rather, something that looked like her. Its face twisted into an unnatural grin, eyes black and endless. The voice from the radio returned, now a whisper. "Leave now. It's watching." Emily stumbled back, her heart pounding. She grabbed the lantern and fled the cabin, slamming the door behind her. The trail back seemed different, longer, darker, and eerily quiet. The wind no longer rustled the leaves. The forest felt dead. 4:15 a.m. The woods. As Emily hurried down the trail, the She was plunged into darkness. Panic clawed at her throat. She fumbled for her flashlight, but it refused to turn on. That's when she heard it. Soft footsteps behind her, mimicking her every move. "Who's there?" she shouted, her voice echoing through the trees. There was no answer, only the sound of something breathing. She broke into a run, branches tearing at her skin. The footsteps quickened, closing the distance. Emily dared not look back. Suddenly, she tripped and fell hard onto the ground. Rolling onto her back, she saw it. A figure stood over her, its features obscured by shadow. But its eyes, those same black, endless eyes from the mirror, pierced through the darkness. It reached for her, its movements slow and deliberate. 6 a.m. Found Emily's body was discovered hours later by a search party, lying in the middle of Hollow Road. Her car was gone, and there were no signs of the cabin or the trail she had described. The only clue was a shattered mirror fragment clutched in her hand, its surface stained with something dark. To this day, no one ventures into Blackwater Woods after dark, and on quiet nights, some claim to hear the crackle of static and a whisper carried on the wind. Do not look into the mirror.